Hey, this is The Hard Truth, Tony Shaffer, powered by 6 Hour, never settle. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I always carried the best. The best is 6 Hour. What do I have today? Reaching back to my gun safe, and I got my 45 caliber P220 carry. Great weapon. This is also a Legion, so I highly recommend y'all run out and get yourself protected by 6 Hour. We are happy as people who know how to defend themselves using 6 Hour. So SIG is our sponsor, and we're moving on here. And also, we are on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network, also available on the America Out Loud Podcast Network. Check us out, Project Sentinel, at projectsentinel.com and .net. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, etc. And always a shout out to our friend and esteemed colleague, Cherie Curry, who does our theme music and bumper music. So without further ado, we're joined today by Angie Wong. Angie Wong is the co-host of The Final Countdown, a political commentator, Columbia University graduate. So I guess
Don't hold that against me.
She graduated before they started taking people's brains and sucking them out, like in the movie. What was that movie where the alien sucked out the brains? That was
a few of them like that, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it was one where they actually would do it. It was the one based on that novel. My goodness, I love that movie.
Yeah, someone's going to fact check that for us.
Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers. So let's roll right in. So you were the Master of Ceremonies for the premiere. First of will hopefully be an annual event from everything we're hearing of the inaugural Veterans Parade in Washington, D.C., held this past Sunday, the 12th of November. And so obviously you got to see the whole parade. I didn't get to see it because I had to be in the front, which is great. I'm not complaining. I got to be right in front with the old guard with the fife and drum corps. So first off, Angie, thank you for being willing to do that. That was not an easy task, doing something for the first time and trying to make sense of it. This was primitive compared to other parades, but you did a great job. So tell us about your view and what your view was of the parade and what you think we should do going forward.
Well, I want to first thank our Grand Marshal for the inaugural National Veterans Parade, the shirt that you're wearing right now, Tony Shaffer. Yep. He was incredible on stage. I think you saved my butt, actually. No, look, with any of these things, more rehearsals, more prep time, more everything, more media prep would have been great. You know, a lot of the times you're just thrown right into it and you make it up as you go along, which was very much the case. I was certainly making it up as I went along. I got the script a few minutes prior to jumping on stage. And of course, you know, with the military, there's a lot of procedurals and there's a lot of formalities and all those things. And I wish I just had a little bit more time to kind of understand that more, because I never served, unlike yourself. I never got to serve my country in that way. I'm just so thankful that I'm able to work with veterans, that I'm able to support our military. And I said this on stage on Sunday, Tony. I said, I want to thank everyone here, because without you guys, my kids would not have these freedoms. Right. Like, we need to preserve this right now, because we see our freedoms slipping away so quickly, really within the last 5 years, I would say, or less. A little bit about me. I was a foreign correspondent in Asia for about 13 years. So I saw firsthand what communism does. Oh, yeah. And I see how our newspaper, I'm a newspaper girl. I see how our newspapers and our press was over there, especially in the Hong Kong, China region. And when I came back to the US in 2015, 2016, I looked at the New York Times and I go, what is going on here? This is not a newsroom. This is an activist. These are activists in a newsroom pretending to be journalists. And it was something that certainly, you know, it was a very different world for me to operate in. I couldn't operate in it, in fact.
Right. So that's what I tried to say in my 2-minute spontaneous. And by the way, as Angie said, it was a cold read, and we had a number of folks lined up. It was not rehearsed. By the way, there was no rehearsal. It was like, we're going in. This is one of my dear friends is, and I'll do a shout out to him right now, is Bob Hayes. Robert Hayes from Airplane. And so just like it's really funny, you know, my alias in Afghanistan was Stryker, and of course he played Ted Stryker. So I'm his younger brother, Chris Stryker. And anyway, we do a great, but you know, it's just like, you're just like Stryker going in to fly the airplane. It's like, do you know how to fly an airplane? And we were thrown in. And I think, by the way, and a shout out to both the organizers, to Fran and Diane Ventura, who put their money where their mouth is. They self-funded a lot, most of the expenses of the DC police, who did a great job. Police did a great job there. I really had a great time interacting with them. By the way, they actually looked forward to being there because they knew they would have no problems with the crowd. It's like, yeah, well, you guys are going to be fun. You guys are great. You're going to keep everything. So they knew it was going to be fine. And then, of course, Mayor Bowser's task force, who really did a great job of opening the door for this. So as much as anything, to me, that door being open for this being kind of, I don't want to say it was ad hoc. It was planned. It's just, it wasn't as smooth or as refined as I think everybody would like to make it. But that's where we want to do next year, is make it much more refined.
Yeah, and every live production has a lot of these things, right? Especially the first one. I really want to thank Fran and Diane for just being phenomenal patriots. I mean, remember, Tony, this is the first time a group of conservative Republicans mainly and patriots got to go back into DC and be welcomed.
That's right.
After what had happened on a particular date in January in 2021.
Right.
A lot of us were afraid to go in. And I think Fran and Diane made it okay again, that we can go back into our capital city. We can, you know, and not be afraid.
Yeah.
So they opened that door and made it welcoming. And that's real leadership. So I would like them so much. I really hope that they do well in future annual national parade, a veterans parade. I think they're phenomenal people.
Well, I think once people saw it could be done, number one, number two, that it was effective. My estimate was, having run the route, I think between 5,000 and 6,000 folks showed up for it. I mean, they were all along, all the way down to 14th Street. I mean, I was shocked. It's like, holy cow, people really showed up, and they were very enthusiastic. A lot of folks knew me, would say hello. And think about it, there was no budget. We had no advertising budget. It was kind of whatever word we could. And one of the things you did brilliantly was kind of this guerrilla social media thing to help get attention drawn to it. But there was no budget. There was no promotion budget. And what little we had, we were able to do through local media. And to that point, NBC Channel 4, which is not a conservative station, did cover this. Stars and Stripes was there. I talked to the Stars and Stripes folks. So the folks who covered it were, again, not conservative. There were folks who just simply wanted to show up and document what happened, which I thought was wonderful. I had no problems with any of the media folks. I did multiple interviews. Once I did my last interview, I think you probably saw, was with some American University students, kids. They were great. They asked some really cool questions about what does this all mean, and they took some pictures, and I think it was good. One of the other shout outs I want to do beyond Fran and Diane is, of course, my dear friend and de facto stepdad, Tony LoBianco. So Tony, as you know, showed up to do a live read of Just a Common Soldier. And years ago, I first saw that. And it just gives me chills just mentioning this. And for those who are listening, go check out, you can Google it, Just a Common Soldier, Tony LoBianco on Facebook, on YouTube or Facebook. It's actually out there. And it is such a stirring reading. And I don't know if you know this, Tony's not been in the best health. And he said, I'm going to be there no matter what. And he got up there and he did it. And it was just amazing. And so many of the words in that presentation have to do with the fact that veterans serve, they do the hard work defending the nation, which I want to come back to in a second, talk more about that. But politicians, who are generally slimy people, I've known a few.
Which ones, Tony? Which ones?
Well,
I'm kidding.
I put them in I'd say 90% are slimy. The 10% are not. You can identify pretty quickly. But I'm just saying, that Tony rightfully identified as part of his monologue that the soldier who does all the hard work is barely recognized, but these politicians who basically create the problems soldiers have to come take care of, are the ones who get all the recognition. I thought that was great. What did you think about that?
Yeah, no, I didn't do him justice. When I heard him read, I literally looked around the crowd, and you're talking a crowd of, standing before us was a few hundred people.
Yeah.
They were silent. I've never seen a street
Yeah.
in DC so quiet listening to him. And when he left that stage, I completely forgot my cues. I was just so involved and absorbing with everything he has to say. He's just so intense in that way.
Yeah.
And I was just, that was one of probably the highlights from the parade for me, for sure.
Yeah, and so Tony and Elise at LaBianco, again, obviously we'll hopefully do some more with them on this issue. And obviously he's close to Gary Sinise and some others who are very great patriots. And obviously we want to do more next year to include an expanded array of Hollywood friends. And I've, some of the folks that people know I'm associated with, Cherie Curry is aware of this. Bob Hayes is obviously aware of this. I'm hoping that we can do a bigger show of folks who show up to participate. We'll see. We'll see.
And absolutely. And from the media point of view, they'd love that. I mean, funny enough, a reporter friend of mine from Mother Jones happened to stumble onto the parade and stayed on and loved every minute.
Yeah.
Veterans is one of those, like it's like a happy brand almost. Like everyone supports veterans. You cannot not support veterans, right? It's still something that both sides and every side can get along with and support. So that's why I think this was such a great first inaugural parade. Yeah. It brought everyone together. We've been divided for so long. This was nice just to party with everyone again and be from all fracture. I didn't ask who was standing next to me,
right,
what their ideology was. It was just like, look what is happening, especially going into a year where there's so much turmoil happening around the world, where we've got two major conflicts in different regions. We might have a third or fourth. This is the time. We have to, support our soldiers, our active soldiers, our military, and our veterans, because who else is going to get us through this?
Well, I'm going to talk about that. That's the next topic after the next topic we're going to. Before we close out the first topic of the parade, I think the reason you and I were picked, we're just crazy enough to be able to ad lib. And no, I'm serious. I'm completely serious. I think Fran, it's like, yeah, these two are knuckleheads enough that we'll throw them in there and they'll figure it out. No, I'm serious. I'm completely serious about that. It's like, yeah, they're crazy. Right. They'll do it. Because I mean, it's like, I think it came out looking smooth. I think it looked professional. It was great, but I'm just saying, it's like, yeah, they'll do it. You'll throw them in there.
But we knew what we were doing, right? Even if we didn't know what we were doing, we could pull it off. We looked smooth. No one in the crowd knew what was going on. They were there to see the cars and the stripes and all the uniforms. They weren't there to see you and I. Right. Sorry, Tony. But.
Right. No, but one of the audibles that you all did or they did is like, oh, by the way, you Grand Marshal, you got to do a 2-minute speech. Like, okay, sure. So I did, and it's out there.
Yes, you did.
So on that point, one of the points I did want to make as I figured this out in the 10 seconds it took me to walk up on stage is that veterans are invested in not only protecting the nation, but protecting the political system. And I use both politically correct terms, the republic and the democracy, because Democrats think there's a difference, but there's not, just saying. But I did say the very investment of veterans in the future of the nation is because they have decided, we as veterans have decided that saving the republic in the very format of our nasty disagreements, which are often public, the fact is we have to protect that space so we can have those disagreements. So what do you think? I mean, I want to make that point as part of our discussion. So.
I think that belongs on a T-shirt. That should be on a tattoo. No, I mean, that was very well put and concise. I like that. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of conflict, and politicians do cause a lot of those conflicts. Yeah. There's a cleanup crew, unfortunately.
Yes,
but I think more than a cleanup crew. I mean, just the presence, right? Like. Yeah. I was saying to the organizers, like, I don't think we need our first responders here. We have a few thousand veterans here. Yeah. Like, no one's coming in to help, to do anything. Not today.
Well, I was going to say there were some shenanigans, which I'm not going to acknowledge beyond saying there were some shenanigans. And I think they were afraid certain folks who will remain nameless as an organization showed up. They chose not to be disruptive because I think they would have gotten beaten up. I think the crowd would not have accepted any nonsense from them at all. I think that's why they were sedate, and I'll just leave it at that. So again, Angie, thank you for serving as the Grand Marshal. I think
you're the Grand Marshal.
Oh, I mean the
I
Master of Ceremonies.
Yes.
What am I saying? No, I was like,
it's okay. We're just on live broadcast.
But yeah, that's right. But no, thank you for being there and serving. And obviously, it was a great event that a lot of people, I think, enjoyed. I think we're going to have a great running start for next year. I think we're going to have a lot more sponsorship, a lot more rehearsal, if we can use that as a term, and it'll go forward. So speaking of media, so you're the co-host of the Final Countdown over on Epoch TV. Now, how many F-14s and aircraft carriers do you have available to go shoot down Japanese Zeros, just out of curiosity?
Well, as many as you're going to give me, Tony. I mean, we're counting on you for a full stage production here.
Oh, boy.
I mean, right now we just have a cartoon of one. We don't really have any. No, we don't have a budget for military kit just yet. Hopefully someday.
Yeah.
No, it's a great show. I kept it really, really quiet for the first couple of months of being a co-host. I'm usually a guest on people's show. I don't, like I do my spiel. I kind of tell you like my random thoughts on life, and then I go away.
Yeah.
Now I have the show, and it's like they want me to read the news.
It's different. I know.
Like, I can't read. Are you kidding me? Like, I have like a very low grade, intelligence, and I had to, especially the foreign news. I couldn't pronounce any of the names. I'm so horrible. So I'm not from broadcast. I'm a paper girl. I can re-edit everything for 12 hours.
I get that completely.
So I kept my show really, really quiet. I'm really thankful because for the first time, I have a show where I get to argue with my radio husband. His name is Ted Rell. He is a cartoonist and he's a Democrat socialist.
Wow.
Okay. And
I'm double whammy
of the crowd. So we go at it like a husband and wife team about whatever kitchen table issue that we have to talk about that day. Yeah. So today was, Biden meeting President Xi at the APEC summit. And we just go at it from the two opposite ends of the political spectrum. And you know what? When you have a civilized conversation about stuff, and we have to be civilized because, you have airwave rules and FCC and stuff. Right. You actually we tend to agree on a lot. If you could talk it through, it's almost like couples therapy, Yeah. So I thought I'd try something new because one of the gripes I've had in the last year or so is that, if you're in the conservative space or if you're on the liberal space, you're in your own echo chamber all day long. Right. So you're constantly reaffirming things that you think you already know. And then they somehow become these truths because you hear it so many times. I want to get out of that space because, for me being a Republican conservative, I want to grow my church. Right. I could talk to people all day long, I'm not going to mention who, but, people in my own party were like, yeah, right on. But you got to go where it's uncomfortable.
Right.
You got to go where it's foreign to bring people in. And I think I got my Democrat socialist co-host to vote for on the Republican side this time. I hope.
Well, that's good. I mean, practically speaking, I know a lot of folks, my friend Tulsi Gabbard, I think figured it out pretty early. And,
she's
a lot of the folks who follow my show know that I was advising her long before she left the Democrat Party because my job is to advise anybody who asks for advice. No, a very quick story. Dennis Kucinich is a friend of mine. I love Dennis. Dennis and I get along very well. He's not a conservative, but we have a lot in common. And so Dennis approached me one day. I'm down at, I'd just done a Fox News hit. I think he and I were on together doing something like this. And he says, look, I gotta ask you a question. Okay. Would you be willing to advise a friend of mine? And Dennis, if she's a friend, if this is a friend of yours, it's a friend of mine. Who do you want? He said, Tulsi Gabbard. I said, sure. If she's willing to take advice, have me in, line it up. And sure enough, she was. So Jim Woolsey, another kind of blue dog Democrat, Jim and I became advisors to her long before she left the party. But then again, she left the party because she figured out that her party wasn't for defending Hawaii from Little Rocket Man. I mean, that was the whole issue, one of her big issues. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail that she may get upset about, but I can tell you that she was very concerned about defending her constituents. And that was a good thing. And that was what my focus was too. Look, they're Americans. They may not be red Americans, but they're Americans. And it's my job to do my best to advise you on what to do to defend them. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of folks have recognized that's the way to go. And you're laughing at this. I used to be on MSNBC in the old days. And I'm going to say something complimentary about MSNBC. Well, two words, Dylan Ratigan. Dylan Ratigan was a Wall Street guy who had his own show.
Okay.
And he was great. And he would have all versions of the truth on. He would actually explore what was going on. I remember one time Christine Fair, who's a liberal, was on his show with me, and she was defending the unlimited use of droning people in Pakistan. And I was saying, this is not a good idea. And I'm the conservative. And Dylan even says, like, this is different. You've got the conservatives saying we shouldn't be droning people and be very precise. And you got Christine Fair, who apparently is a neocon, just saying, oh, yeah, we should drone every village and hope for the best.
Oh, my gosh.
So my point is that what you're doing is something that needs to be done and maintained. I think both sides can get a lot out of dialogue, not basically yelling at each other. And I think that's what's missing these days.
And we'll bring that back. Tony, let's bring it back. Look, even with Epoch, we're developing a show right now called Civil Discourse. And do you remember the show Crossfire back in the day? Okay, that's what this is. But, you know, a little bit more updated. Sorry, Bob Novak's no longer there. But Tucker Carlson's still available. I think he doesn't have a job yet. You know, like, I love that show. That's how I learned politics back 20 years ago.
Well, I like the McLaughlin group. I love them. As a matter of fact, I know Eleanor Cliff. I was actually on the revised version of that, which was fun. So I think the McLaughlin group was great. So
again, just dialogue, talking without yelling, no name calling, just like, let's talk politics. And I think that's the way together. I mean, and this is why I love working with you, and I love working with Diane Fran Ventura, because it's like, let's just get it together.
Right.
I'm not trying to be an adult in the room. I'm not the adult in the room by any means, but we can't do what we're doing right now, because that's just going to further split us apart. And then you're really going to have a big mess. Right.
I mean, if you could have shows with Eleanor Cliff and Pat, oh my God! I was just thinking of his name. It's like I'm such a senior today. Pat Buchanan. Pat Buchanan.
Is he still around?
He is around. Pat and I had the same publisher, Bill Shatner. Pat Buchanan and I all had Tom Dunn Books do our books. So Tom was proud of the fact he could pick whoever he wanted. So it's like, okay, you got Bill Shatner and you got Pat Buchanan and me. I don't know what that says. I don't even know what that means. So anyway, but yes, and so he's around. But the idea is, if you could have that in the old days, we should do it in the new days, right? I mean, we should bring back that sort of dialogue. So,
Tony, I think we need to talk about a pilot right now. I think you could have 4 screens on this, and we could try it out. What do you think? And then we'll send it over to the networks for a pickup.
Well, but the thing is, though, Angie, we can't have AI. So we were losing the advantage, because, you know, China says we can't have it, and Joe Biden says we can't have AI. So AI is off. So I would like to have AI helping our guests speak, especially if they're, you know, being derived from the ether. But all things being equal, I think it's a great potential. I think it's something we should talk more about. And I'm sure Chris wants to talk about it, because Chris is already doing some stuff in this space. So we'll have a bigger dialogue about what we can do to work on bringing back either the firing line. Wasn't Tucker on firing line in the old days?
I don't remember. I just remember him being a young Tucker wearing a bow tie with the silly hair. I'm like, who's this dude?
Yeah.
And today he's still that dude. So.
Well, he got rid of the bow tie, so I think we all outgrow our fetishes. You know, I used to wear tube socks, and I got over that too.
Excuse me?
Tube socks. You know,
what, like
I went to high school in the 70s. You have to remember. Like, so
where would you wear the tube socks?
You wear tube socks out playing soccer. You know, I mean. What did you think I was saying?
I wasn't sure. I was like, what?
All right. Well,
no, I get it. We all have to have one clothing choice that's like the permanent thing that we do.
Look, I miss parachute pants. I wish they'd bring those back.
Oh
I loved the 70s. The 70s were great. Parachute pants. My goodness, there was nothing better than wearing loose nylon. Ask MC Hammer. Ask MC Hammer, right? I mean, that's really, seriously. How can you not like a loose nylon, right? I mean, that's you know. That should be a name of a group. We'll have to talk to Chris about having a rock group named Loose Nylon. That's a great rock and roll name there. So speaking of that, we're going to tease a show. We're trying to organize a Christmas show. We're going to wrap up here in a second, but we're trying to do a pants optional but gun required show. And I don't want to say who's going to be our.
Wait, a pants optional gun required.
That's
show.
right. That's right. We're developing it now for Christmas. Yeah. So you can only imagine who we're going to have on for that show. So
I want to be on that show, Tony.
Well, we'll invite you. So, all right. So we're coming up on the break. We have a hard break. This is the Hard Truth. Tony Shaffer, powered by Sig Sauer. Never settle. We're going to be right back with part 2, and we're going to jump in with Angie on all the news of the day, which is plentiful. We got Joe Biden basically wandering around San Francisco looking for his next depends change. I'm sure that's happening. And we've got the Israelis storming the hospital. And I guess, did you see that, Angie?
I did.
The daily, basically the Babylon Bee talked about how all the AK-47s that they're finding there were all for medicinal reasons. Just saying, it's a great thing. So anyway, we'll be right back after this break. Hey, this is the Hard Truth, part 2 with Tony Shaffer, still powered by Sig Sauer. Never settle. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I always carried the best. The best is Sig Sauer. I recommend you carry the best. Go out and grab yourself the best and protect yourself. We're on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network, also available on the America Out Loud Podcast Radio Network. Check us out, Project Sentinel, projectsentinel.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or X, whatever it's called now. God knows what it is. and we're available, obviously, through our website. You can see what we do there. So anyway, we're back with part 2 of the show. Angie Wong is continuing to join us, co-host of the final countdown. Unfortunately, no F-14s or Japanese zeros to be found there, but it's a good show anyway, right? And we're joined today, as always, by the unguided Chris Cordani.
I like it.
And the unequivocal Elizabeth Breckenkamp. So, and by the way, Elizabeth was there at the parade with us, right, Elizabeth?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
She was in the Ford vehicle, making sure that in case we had Luftwaffe fighters strafing us, she would give me early warning so I could jump down. So it was good. Yep. So anyway, so let's jump right in. So we're going to go back into now current events. So one of the things, Angie, I would say is that Joe Biden is overmatched by other world leaders. Would you agree with that assessment?
He's overmatched. Oh, yeah, look, he's meeting with China President Xi Jinping today, and he's walking into that meeting completely powerless. Yes, you saw what he said on Tuesday at the White House press conference. His best hope for this meeting, the first meeting with President Xi this year, is that he could, maybe President Xi can call him. Maybe they could open a line of communications. What? We don't have a line of communications with China currently? That was the best he could do walking into this meeting. So you better believe someone as powerful as the Chinese president is watching that press conference going, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. I'll just get whatever I want from my demand list. It was terrible.
Well, I'll open it up there about in one second, but that's one of the things I want to address. So I was friends and mentors with a lot of the Reagan folks, to include Bud McFarlane and Ambassador Hank Cooper. Angie, they told me stories about Reykjavik. Now, Gorbachev and the Soviets were really, really worried about something called SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative. The idea was that the concept was the technology was not going to be available, and barely is now. But the idea is we're going to have technology to be able to knock down your missiles. Oh, yeah, you can have all the nukes you want. We don't care because we can knock them down.
Sure.
And that concept lacking any credibility other than us saying, oh, yeah, we're going to do it, and saying it with enthusiasm, was the thing the Soviets most feared. They were out to get that off the table. And Reagan bluffed them. That was the one thing that Gorbachev wanted as part of one of the START deals, and they wouldn't give it to him. And by the way, it was nothing there. It was nothing there, but they wouldn't give it up. It's like, no, we're not giving it up. And he won. He actually buffaloed, played poker, and beat Gorbachev at their own game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder if our posturing days are over, though. Right. I think there's limitations to our posturing. We tried doing that. Look, President Xi, China President Xi, completely ignored all of Biden's cabinets in the last couple of months. Anthony Blinken walked in. He had to sit at the kids' table in China. Janet Yellen tried going in. Pete Buttigieg didn't even bother. I don't even know if he got an invite to Xi's Belt and Road Initiative. I mean, everybody was there. All the world leaders were there, and over 800 CEOs. But where was our transportation secretary? He was in West Palm Beach looking at a fast-speed train that Ron DeSantis just built. Okay, so it's jokish.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So, Tony, you're talking about Reagan how he was able to bluff him, which makes me, in comparisons, like, I don't think Joe Biden even knows how to bluff. It's like,
come on,
we
man.
know Joe Biden isn't really in control. He's not really running the White House. So whoever is behind him, we're thinking, Obama, whoever. Apparently, they don't know how to bluff either. But I like that comparison when Reagan did that, and Reagan was so smart on so many levels. He was so strategic, but now I'm just thinking, who in the White House would even know how to bluff?
Well, the reason Reagan was so good at this is because he had acting skill and he knew how to talk. I will never forget when I was in this program called Leadership Orange in Orange County. They kind of lean a little left for me, but the idea is there was one section we went to. I believe we went to West Point at the time, and it's in our home territory, Orange County, New York, and it winds up that one of the speakers for this particular class was one of the four, I believe, if I'm correct, and Tony, you can correct me on this, a member of each service should be accompanying the president when he goes certain places. Right. One of them, and this was one of those gentlemen for a period of time. A reporter asked him how when most of the people in the world and in America don't believe the Star Wars is going to work, how is he going to expect Gorbachev to believe it? How is he going to expect the Soviets to beat them in the Cold War? He goes, well, as long as I believe it's going to work, and as long as Mr. Gorbachev believes it's going to work, well, then that should be fine. And that's what happened. That's the idea. There are only a few key people that you need to bluff to.
That wasn't a very good imitation of Ronald Reagan.
No, yours is better.
I don't know. I think it's Cap Weinberger who said that. I don't know. He has a tiger tattoo somewhere. Chris, did you know that?
I think Bill Clinton might know that.
Well, I don't know. Nancy, maybe Nancy could help out on that. I don't know. Anyway, back to
yours is better than mine.
Right, as long as you believe it and you can convince Gorbachev to believe it. Then
but Angie, let me ask you a question. So some of this is credibility. The one element that must exist within deterrence is credibility, and that's what this administration lacks. Biden has no capability. Nobody has credibility. So I think it's more of a factor of lack of credibility than lack of usable elements of leverage if you understood how to use them. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure about that because, obviously, look, this is the first time that President Xi has been on U.S. soil since Donald Trump invited him back in 2017.
Right.
He doesn't have to be here. He could have ignored the Biden administration for another year, right? He didn't have to be here. So he must want something as well. And it seems like, to me, I was making a joke, but I don't know if it's that far of a joke. This feels like couples therapy between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping. It's like, okay, it's like, send the spy balloon. No, I'm going to send Anthony Blinken, and nothing works, and they can't talk. And Biden's on, at the White House press secretary, talking about how they have to open up lines of communications. I'm like, oh my goodness. All right. So I think President Xi actually needs something from the U.S. I'm not sure what that is just yet, but you saw what California Governor Gavin Newsom did this morning. He rolled out the red carpet for Xi's landing when he got into San Francisco International. And then they even turned a block of San Francisco to look like streets of Beijing.
Right.
It was frightening if anyone's seen this.
Where did they put all the homeless people? That's what I want to know.
It was a temporary cleaning. I saw that it was a temporary cleaning. He wanted to make everything look nice for his pal Xi Jinping. Yeah.
Right.
But why? Why
Elizabeth,
did you have to impress him at all?
Right. Elizabeth, I have an answer to your question. Soylent Green are people. Just saying. So.
That happened last year. That was the timeline. I believe it was last year. Soylent Green was
back to Angie. So Angie, but let's contrast the meeting at Mar-a-Lago with Z and Trump and the meeting in San Francisco with pretty boy Governor Newsom and the streets of feces-free San Francisco. So, by the way, Carl Malden, whatever happened to that was a great show, The Streets of San Francisco, right? Man. So anyway, but when Z was at Mar-a-Lago, do you remember, Angie? Do you remember what Trump did over dessert?
No.
He announced the airstrike in Syria against targets.
Yes, I do somehow remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that's the way you do it. It's like, oh, by the way, I just killed a bunch of people. How's that for dessert?
Again, this is a big power play. This is why it's like, why is Biden going in saying, I would just like for you to pick up my phone calls? You know, it's just so weird to me.
Why don't you ever call me back?
Exactly. And it's also his aides, right? I mean, you know, especially with working with the Chinese, everything is about where you stand next to those in power, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Gavin Newsom just a few weeks ago flew out to Hong Kong and then Beijing and sat face to face in equal chairs and footing with Xi Jinping on stage meant everything. And we always thought, okay, maybe Newsom's going to try to run for president. No, it was really in preparation, I think, for the APEC meeting happening in San Francisco right now, that everything was going to be fine. It now appears like Gavin Newsom was setting it up so that it was okay for Grandpa Joe to then go meet with Xi Jinping.
That makes sense, yeah.
A little bit. And what is it really? I mean, ultimately, I think what we need from this meeting, from the Apex meeting is, well, Janet Yellen was there also greeting Xi as he flew in. We need China to buy more U.S. debt. Right. And that's kind of just a reality of things right now. They've been buying debt. We need them to buy more debt because we're in so much debt. And that's the only way we can kind of save the, you know, inflation in somewhat of our economy at the moment. What do we need from China exactly? I mean, there's stuff. Yeah, we need, you know, we have a big trade, you know, thing going on with them. So we do need those little buttons that go into our cars and our dishwashers and all that stuff until we decide that, you know, American manufacturing is sustainable. Right. I don't think at $40 an hour it is, but, you know, we don't have a solution either, right? So,
well, there's three things I think that are not. Well, three things for you to think about, Angie. First off, the weapon of mass destruction, which I consider is fentanyl. That's something that has affected all of every community. That's affected literally every community I know has been affected by that. Secondly, we're supposed to be given $10 billion of support to Taiwan, so that can't sit well with Xi. And then ultimately, part of the negotiations, according to Fox News, which I tend to believe this article is credible, one of the things they plan on giving up, that is the Biden administration, is the potential application of AI to our nuclear weapons response. Now, I think there's some issues there about how it would be used, but the idea that we're giving up something that could potentially be an advantage baffles me. So what do you make of that kind of mixed messaging from the Biden folks?
Okay, well, the idea of giving up AI technology to the Chinese scares the living daylight out of me. I don't know why that would even be a trade. Clearly, you know, the United States, even though we have the MIT AI lab and we've been doing this for decades, we're actually not that smart in this space. You know, the Israelis are way beyond us on this, right? Why not go there? It seems to be a weird ask. I don't know, anything to any sort of defense information to give to your enemy, essentially, is strange. And I think that has to be looked at and really examined as to why that's even on the table. Where are our military leaders to stop this, to say this is a terrible idea?
Well, I know military leaders I talk to say it's a terrible idea. Unfortunately, not the ones in charge. I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead. So.
Oh, no, this is all good. There's another aspect to China that we have to watch, and nobody's talking about this, or not enough people are. China is hoarding gold. Okay, they're buying up, they're picking up more gold than ever. We're talking about how they should pick up more U.S. treasuries. They're going to want gold. What's going to be very interesting is China is the C in BRICS. They're trying to put together a gold-backed currency to challenge the American dollar. I'm not sure if the B, R, I, and S countries and the other 20 they're trying to recruit are going to come out okay when it looks like China is hoarding a lot of this gold. Let's put it this way. We don't trust them. We shouldn't trust them. And neither should the other nations in the BRICS, let's just say, alliance, if you will.
Yeah, and that's all part of the posturing that's taken place. This basket of currency, it's heavily Chinese money and more so Russian, although, you know, their dollars all over the place right now. But, it's really posturing to the U.S. and how we buy crude oil, right? It's really about how do we move it off the U.S. dollar and into the Chinese yuan, or RMB, if you want to call it that. And that's happening already. Look, as soon as Biden lifted the sanctions on Iran, who was the first buyer to buy from Iran? Oil. It was China, and they bought a lot of it. At one estimate, it was like $80 billion worth. I think it's a lot higher than that. And so now you've got this new relationship between Iran and China, and also Russia up here, because they're, puppet mastering a lot of this as well. You just created a whole new world power right there, Joe Biden. Thanks very much. And it's having lived in Hong Kong and having the Hong Kong dollar back to the U.S. for a long time, there was always a scare that overnight China could flip the switch and make that a yuan-backed Hong Kong dollar, because they could do it, and it would happen overnight, and people's wealth would devalue within seconds, literally. So that's why if you're a Hong Kong investor, you're like literally divesting your stuff. And that's what we almost have to look at as well. It's like, what are we doing here with the dollar? What are we doing here with China? I think both sides, the US and China, can get a lot out of this. Remember, it was right after 9/11 that Bush went into Shanghai and had I think it was also the APEC summit then as well, again, 20 years ago. And Bush said had basically created an open line, I guess, for 10 years going forward. And we kind of became friends again, So maybe, if Biden had any sort of charisma, we could have another couple of great years with China. So we're not fighting, and there's no decoupling anymore, as he likes to put it. I don't even understand that word in the context of geopolitics. Okay. But that's what Biden used. It could be a really good thing, because we can't afford another enemy right now. We can't afford
he does have immense personal gravitas. Is just bad. It's all bad. That's all. So,
just feed him some ice cream, he'll be okay. But it is about that time. It is fun time. Normally, Miss Marianne had the magic mirror on Romper Room. Here on The Hard Truth of Tony Shaffer, we have Tony's Takes.
Yes.
There you go. Here's one. It turns out that Kevin McCarthy, he has a pretty good...
don't forget, we're brought by 6 Hour. We're powered by 6 Hour.
That's right. The Tony's Takes is powered by 6 Hour. Never settle.
Never settle.
Boy, there we go. It turned... And see, I was thinking of the fisticuffs as the weapon instead of the gun this time, because it turns out Kevin McCarthy elbowed Rep. Tim Burchett to the kidneys, and he apparently packs a pretty decent punch. It was witnessed by a reporter. When did we start allowing Philo Beto, from the movie Every Which Way But Loose type fighting circles to these congressional floor around there? What's going on here?
So, Chris, this is not well known, but the Master Championship of slap fights actually happens in Capitol Hill. So the members all get behind the scenes. They all go at each other. So
looks like Will Smith must be
the tragic losses there. I mean, you can end up with like a paper cut or something if you're not careful. So I'm telling you right now, but the actual, it's like an Olympic event, the congressional slap fights. And let me tell you that there is equality there, because women and men are completely equal in slap fights. Just saying. There is no.
I don't know. I think women are better at slap fighting than men are.
There you go. So
we know how to go for the hair, right?
So secretly, McCarthy won the championship last year, and that's how he became speaker. Prove me wrong.
And he didn't even have an orangutan. How about that?
Well, I don't know about that. I could go down a path we'd all regret.
Oh, let's not go there. Yeah, okay.
We'll stay away from orangutans this session.
Yes. Angie, Tony, here's one for you guys. And Elizabeth, check this out. Noted head case, Pelosi family buddy and assailant. Well, yeah, that's good. Friend and assailant. How about that? David DePape pleaded not guilty to charges, including attempted kidnap of a federal official, blaming, now get this longtime left-winger blames right-wing podcasters. And believe me, he mentions Tim Pool by name. And by the way, that guy's not a righty or a lefty.
He's not a righty. No.
Yep. And Gamergate. Gamergate was a thing from how many years ago for his attacks while on the witness stand. And worst of it all is BBC and the regular mainstream media are actually legitimizing all of this. Tony, Angie, Elizabeth, what's your take?
Nobody wants to take this.
Well, let me
so
talk
ridiculous.
about Paul
It's so
Pelosi. Look, let's be honest here. Anyone who can stay married to Nancy Pelosi deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for tolerating inhuman suffering. I mean, he and Mother Teresa are up there. I don't know how he does it. I mean, come on, let's be honest here. Male or female, if you have to go home and see Nancy, I just like, okay. I mean, I don't know. I think that right there is as bad as being hit in the head with a hammer. Just saying.
Oh,
it explains all the cream in the freezer.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, you have to understand all of this is being played out in the San Francisco court. So the bad guy is always going to be the conservative. It's always going to be the far right winger podcaster. Mm-hmm. I mean, what better villain than a conservative podcaster? Ask Tony.
Yeah,
I know. Look, I'm a real spy. So, it's like, what can I say? Yeah. No, I was over at the Coast Guard. I had to go get some stuff done over at the closest base to me is a Coast Guard station. And I said, look, you guys, this is great. You guys save people. I used to kill people. What a great combination, right? So it's a good thing. So, but speaking of San Francisco, one of the things I think resulted in depravity. Can I say that word? I think I can say that word.
Something
deprivations is the fact that he had to walk through, I think, 3 different trails of feces just to get to the house there. So it's just by the time you get through all that, you're a wacko.
And use needles and
needles. Yeah, needles too.
All kinds of disgusting things. Yeah.
So, that could be an interesting survey. And Angie, you guys should cover this on your show. There should be a paid San Francisco City survey to figure out if needles are actually co-located with feces or are they separate? Because that's a good thing for tourists to know. Like, how do you avoid?
Oh my gosh!
I think the sanitation department might know about that.
Well, there you go.
Good answer. Yes. Yeah.
Well, there's at least a half a clean street somewhere in San Francisco for the next week or so, but that's a different story actually not a different day. That's for today.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another one. By the way, the Minnesota case to kick Donald Trump off the ballot is going to go nowhere. But it seems the Colorado one might actually there's a chance, a sliver of success to this. Funny thing, let's say 10, 12 blue states knock Colorado off the ballot. They weren't going to, or knock Trump off the ballot. They weren't going to vote for him anyway as a whole. So imagine this, Tony, Angie, Elizabeth. Trump gets knocked off about 10, 12 states ballots and still wins the presidency. How about that?
That's hysterical. But I don't see how they can legally do that. I mean,
they can't.
They're
going to lose.
It seems like these people are intentionally breaking the law just to keep Trump from winning.
To drain Trump.
You can legally just remove his name from your ballot. It's like
right. Yeah. No, they are. That's the strategy. It's like they know they're going to lose.
Educate people to let them know, hey, you can write his name in. If you don't see Trump's name there, it's okay to write him in. They always talk about the write-in. Write his name.
Elizabeth, were you aware of? I think the organization is called 65. There's an effort by David Brock, the creator of what is that? That site that goes after. Oh my God! I have such a senior moment today.
David Brock.
David Brock, who did Something for America. What's that? Come on, Chris, help me out here.
I'm thinking of this one too. Boy, oh boy.
Well, we know who David Brock is.
Yeah, David Brock created Matters for what is it? Matters for America, something.
Yes, Media Matters for America. No wonder we forget about him.
So I don't know. So it's forgettable. Anyway, so what happened was Brock created 65. Basically, it's an organization going after the 65 lawyers who supported Trump during the election. There's it's an effort to basically go. I was talking to one of the guys being targeted today. We'll leave that there for now. Good tease, but
there was some good news coming out of the Michigan state court where they tried to do the same effort to knock Trump off the ballot, and the state judge there said, "No way, guys." He in his decision he said whether this was a rebellion or insurrection and whether or not Trump was involved in it, I'm going to defer that to Congress because that is the right body to decide. And he further stressed that no electoral authorities had any powers to knock Trump off the ballot. And hopefully that will be a president's case. I don't know, but they're going to try, and it's going to be unsuccessful because ultimately they have to prove something that they can't.
Right.
Trump was never charged with insurrection. ever.
And there was no insurrection. That's right. So we got jump. We're breaking it off now. We got in the show, but Angie, tell us where people can find you.
You can find me all over Twitter, X. I'm just at Angie Wong. Come follow me there. I can give you all my handles, but that's the best place to reach me. That is my account. I do check my messages, and I will certainly respond back to you. I hope everyone follows. And I want to thank you guys for inviting me on your show. This is the first time I'm on. I'm so happy to see everyone here. I got to meet you very briefly at the parade, and I'm just so thankful for the National Veterans Parade for getting all of us together. And now here we are on your podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, that was really fun. Feels good.
So, okay, well, thank you for joining us, Angie. It was great. Thank you again for being the Master of Ceremonies for the parade. First ever National Veterans Parade, long overdue. People all thought it existed. It's like, no, it doesn't. This is the first one. So thank you for that. Chris, thank you for running the boards. Elizabeth, thank you for being at the parade and being here today. That's it for the Hard Truth this week. I've got to jump off. Both Angie and I have to go out there and do other media, continue to educate the public. And we'll be seeing you again real soon. So be sure and see us again then. We'll be same time, same bat channel, same bat weekend spots. We'll see you then.